Beezy accidentally cuts herself. Bisola feels the exact pain in the same spot. If Bisola cried, Beezy's tears would follow. Their uncanny connection created a sense of unease among the people in their community. Finally, the day came. Beezy's water broke, and she was rushed to the hospital. Once upon a time, in the bustling city of Ibadan, there lived twin sisters named Beezy and Bisola. These twins were not ordinary in any sense. They were telepathic, a gift that made them stand out from every other twin in the city. Their connection was so strong that they seemed like one soul in two bodies. Everything they did was synchronized. Whether it was speaking at the same time, wearing matching outfits, or feeling each other's physical pain, they were inseparable. If Beezy accidentally cut herself, Bisola would feel the exact pain in the same spot. If Bisola cried, Beezy's tears would follow. Their uncanny connection created a sense of unease among the people in their community. The young men of Ibadan, although enchanted by their beauty and grace, were too frightened to approach them. It wasn't just one twin they had to woo, but both. It was impossible to court just one. Both had to be in agreement, or the bond between them would prevent anything from progressing. This peculiarity made many men stay away from them. Their mother, Ayabo, a widowed woman, had raised the twins on her own. It was no easy feat, especially with their extraordinary bond. She adored her daughters, but there were times when their closeness worried her. While other parents watched their children grow and form independent lives, Ayabo's daughters were always together, like two sides of the same coin. There was no separating them, no individuality that could be formed. As much as she loved them, Ayabo longed for her daughters to live lives of their own. One day, a young man in the neighborhood, Femi, gathered the courage to approach Bisola as she walked along the market road. He admired her beauty and was determined to ask her out on a date. But when he greeted her, Beezy, who had been a few steps behind, rushed up to stand beside her sister. "You have to speak to both of us," Beezy said, her voice mirroring her sister's. The twins gave Femi the same look, a shared intensity that made him feel uncomfortable. Femi cleared his throat. I came to speak to Bisola." Bisola replied to him, "I'm sorry, but you have to speak to both of us. We can't be separable," and Beezy's eyes remained fixed on him. "If you wish to speak to Bisola, you must also speak to me. We are one." Femi stood there, unsure of how to respond. It was strange enough to court one girl, but to think that he had to court them both was beyond his understanding. He quickly made an excuse and left, confused and unsettled by the experience. Ayabo heard about the incident and became more anxious. She feared that her daughters would never get married if they continued to behave this way. Desperate, she devised a plan to create discord between them. She thought if she could cause enough misunderstanding, it might lead to their separation, at least emotionally. That way, each could find her own path. Ayabo began subtly favoring one twin over the other. Sometimes she would praise Bisola for her skills at cooking, while ignoring Beezy's efforts. Other times, she would give Beezy extra attention for her academic achievements, leaving Bisola feeling neglected. She thought this would stir competition between them. But no matter what Ayabo did, the twins always found a way back to each other. Their bond was unbreakable. They never fought for long, and any arguments quickly dissolved into laughter and forgiveness. One day, as their mother sent them on an errand, the both of them got into an argument on their way and they started fighting themselves on the street. So a lady saw them and decided to separate them from fighting. "You guys should stop fighting," she said. But before you knew it, they started beating the lady and the lady ran away. They stared at each other and they started laughing. Years passed, and Ayabo's hopes began to fade. She watched as her friends' children got married, had children of their own, and built their families. But Beezy and Bisola remained together, living in her house, as connected as they had been since childhood. It broke Ayabo's heart, and she began to lose hope that her daughters would ever experience a normal life. One day, however, a man named Deli arrived in the city. Deli was a kind and prosperous man, and he had heard stories about the beautiful twins. Unlike the other men, Deli was intrigued by the twins' unique connection. He admired their unity and saw it as a strength rather than something to fear. After meeting them at a local event, Deli fell in love with Bisola. Deli approached Bisola with sincere intentions, asking her to marry him. Bisola smiled at him warmly, but her response was the same as always. "If you wish to marry me, you must also marry my sister. We are one. You cannot separate us." Deli was taken aback. Although he had anticipated some difficulty, he had not expected this. He loved Bisola deeply, but the thought of marrying two women was overwhelming. He struggled with the decision for days, but his love for Bisola won over his fears. Reluctantly, Deli agreed to marry both Bizi and Bisola. The wedding was a strange sight to behold, but it was a grand celebration. People came from all over the city to witness the unusual union. For a while the marriage worked. Deli did his best to show equal affection to both women, but it became clear that his heart truly belonged to Bisola. Bizi, sensing this imbalance, grew angry, but Bisola could also not take it from their husband. One day as Deli came back from work, he bought something for Bisola, but did not buy Bizi. That alone made Bisola angry and refused to take the gift. They were unhappy in that marriage because Deli is being unfair to them. One night, after a particularly heated argument, the twins packed their bags and left Deli's house, returning to their mother. They could not bear the strain on their relationship. They would rather remain unmarried than be torn apart by the complexities of love. Ayabo, upon seeing her daughters back under her roof, was furious. "You threw away a good man. All because you two refused to live separate lives. When will you understand that you cannot always be together?" Bizi and Bisola, however, were unmoved by their mother's anger. They stood by their decision, believing that no man's love was worth sacrificing their bond. Months passed, and another suitor appeared. His name was Kunal, a wealthy man who traveled across the country for his trade. He was captivated by both Bizi and Bisola and found their connection fascinating. Unlike Deli, Kunal didn't struggle with the idea of loving two women. He adored them both equally and promised to cherish them without favoritism. The twins were overjoyed, and for the first time in their lives, they felt truly happy in love. Kunal loved both of them dearly, gave them the same gift, took them shopping. He tried his best to please them and they were so happy. However, tragedy struck not long after their marriage. One morning, as Bisola was going to the market, she was struck by a speeding car. The impact was severe, and she was rushed to the hospital. At the exact moment of the accident, Bizi, who had been at home, felt a sharp pain in her side. She screamed and collapsed to the floor, clutching her chest. "Something has happened to Bisola," she cried, her voice filled with dread. By the time they reached the hospital, Bisola was gone. The doctors tried everything, but her injuries were too severe. Bizi, inconsolable, wept at her sister's bedside. She felt as if a part of her soul had been ripped away. The bond that had kept them together for so long was now broken by death. Kunal did his best to comfort his grieving wife, but nothing could ease her pain. Night after night, Bizi dreamed of Bisola. In her dreams, Bisola would stand before her, smiling and radiant. "Take me along with you, my sister," Bizi would say, reaching out her hand. But Bisola would always reply, "Not yet, my sister. You have to stay. You must give birth to our baby first." Each time Bizi awoke from the dream, she would cry, longing to join her sister in the afterlife. But the words of Bisola in her dreams kept her going. Months passed, and Bizi discovered she was pregnant. The news brought a small measure of joy to her shattered heart. Kunal was overjoyed, hoping that the child would bring some light back into Bizi's life. As her pregnancy progressed, the dreams of Bisola continued. Each time Bisola would remind her, "Stay and give birth to the baby. You are not meant to leave yet." Finally the day came. Bizi's water broke, and she was rushed to the hospital. The labor was long and difficult, but in the end she gave birth to two beautiful baby girls. Twins just like her and Bisola. Exhausted but overjoyed, Bizi cradled her newborn daughters in her arms. She looked up at Cunnel with a weak smile. "Name them after me and my twin sister," she whispered. "Name them Beezy and Bisola." Cunnel nodded, tears streaming down his face. But as he looked into his wife's eyes, he saw life slowly draining from her. Beezy's hand tightened around his, and with her final breath, she whispered, "Now I can join her." Beezy passed away that night, leaving behind her 2 daughters and her grieving husband. The twins, who had been bound together in life, were now reunited in death. Cunnel, heartbroken but determined, named the girls Beezy and Bisola, just as their mother had wished. He vowed to raise them with the same love and unity that their mother and aunt had shared, never allowing them to be separated, even in spirit. And so, the legacy of the twins lived on through their daughters, a bond that transcended life and death, reminding the world that some connections can never truly be broken. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an exciting new story. Your support means a lot, and I look forward to sharing more captivating tales with you. See you in the next video.